Hello, everyone. So this is our sentiment analysis in memory computing session. And it also covers working with DB2 and RStudio in a cloud environment. So that should help you with assignment 3, right? And well, that should help you with assignment 3 and the sentiment analysis tutorial. And of course, I'll try to address as many questions as possible. Okay. Now, okay, so here's agenda, some do's and don'ts, common error, data load validation, a little bit of, well, we're going to do some SQL, talk a little bit about RStudio and troubleshooting. And if you do have problems with running, like I see like now in a message, if you have running into issues, why not to submit the ticket, right? I did not get any ticket related to R, okay? Now, next thing is like, where do you post your questions? If it's some general questions on the due dates or general questions about the readings, that goes to the instructor, right? Like syllabus question. If you need assistance with launching DB2 service, issues with RStudio, IBM Cloud issues, things like that, it goes to me, right? But if it's a question about specific about your grade, right, or anything like accommodation, it goes to email to instructor. All right, so important rules: please don't submit any tickets to IBM unless you're instructed to do so. You want to submit the tickets to the Salesforce. Do not cancel your IBM Cloud account, and please do not enter your credit card number. Do not update the R version on the integrated environment, and please do not add any more than one instance of DB2 unless I tell you to, right? Do not install any packages without approval. Please do not open an application in multiple browsers because, well, what happens is if you open R in multiple browsers, you're going to be consuming twice the hours and you're going to have a problem, right? Then you want to avoid stopping the, if your data load is loading, right, do not stop. Because what's going to happen is when you try to cancel, it generates another process, and it's going to cause more problem. Please do not copy SQL code to Microsoft Word because it's going to introduce some bad characters, and all your code is going to be messed up, and it's not possible to fix. You have to rewrite it all over. So please don't do that. Do not use browser back button. You want to use the navigation menu. Then when you exit R, you need to run the Q command to exit and then stop the runtime environment, because if you just close the browser tab, you keep consuming the hours. Do not spend the days on debugging some same error. And you want to, please, when you download the file, CSV file, do not open it, because if you open it for a fraction of a second, it's going to corrupt the date format. So the date format, I fixed it by opening it in a notepad, right? That's what I did. So I fixed it. I fixed some issues, but as soon as you open it in Excel, it's gonna break again. So please don't do that. Okay. So that's a big picture. You're gonna read the dataset description to understand what the problem you're trying to solve. You're gonna load data from DB2. You're gonna check the log for errors and warning. You're gonna and then you're gonna look at the load status, right? You're gonna check the table metadata, such as number of fields and the data type. Then you're gonna use the SQL to analyze data. Then you're gonna load data in R, analyze data in R, and interpret the finding to reflect on the experiment and limitations. Okay. So what you're gonna use the DB2 on the cloud, it gives you access up to 200 megabytes of storage for free. It has built-in analytics, predictive modeling. So basically, it has it supports the advanced processing. it does not load the entire data set in memory. It only loads the data set, part of the data set that fits the query. It's basically it's a prefetching of the data. Then it doesn't require any decompression, and also large chunks of data skipped. The data that are not relevant to the query, it just been skipped. It's not loaded to memory. And what could you do? You can do the trend analysis, association analysis, decision tree, clustering, right? Network of term analysis. So, and you do have a choice of methods that you can run, right? And now, you want to make sure if you delete the whole instance, you're gonna lose tables and you're gonna lose any code that you have saved in the instance itself. You don't want to save the instance. Well, if you save the code in the instance, right, I'll show you in this bit too, that's fine, but you also need to save the copy of the same code on your PC, okay? Now, that's a hotel data example that we're gonna use, and I'm giving you the file, but before you, if you want to follow along, those are the changes that you're gonna need to make, okay? You're gonna need to make some changes when you upload the data, okay? And the reason is, well, what's happening is DB2 tries to catch the data type automatically when you attempt to upload, but it's looking at the first certain number of records. It's not looking at all records. And during my troubleshooting, I figured out that you need to change the column width manually, then it's gonna work. Okay? And remember, varchar, it's a variable character. Like, for example, if I put varchar 120, it can allocate up to 120 characters on a field. It's not character because it allocates based on a actual data length, right? So when you load data, you're gonna see something like this. And you need to, that's a screenshot that you need to turn in. Make sure that it shows the number of rows that were loaded, the number of rows, red rows loaded and the rows rejected should be 0 rejected. There could be few warnings, but there should not be, okay? It should show load start time and load date time. It's important because we need to know how long the load took, right? Then, well, some warnings might not stop the load process, but they may lead to some unexpected results. Okay. Now, what does it mean programmatic load validation? It's a load validation by running the code. So I'm gonna go back to my DB2. It's a DB2, right? So what I did was I loaded the data here. So I need to go to data and go to, well, when I loaded the data, I did get 3 warnings, but I just ignored it because it's only 3 records out of 5,299. So if I go to tables, I have 2 tables here. See that? That's a hotel reviews table that I loaded. And if data load went wrong, I told you to drop table. What do I mean by drop is this. You go here, and this is a drop that will remove the table, okay? But I'm not gonna do that, of course, but this is a table, see? The hotel data table. And if I want to, I can preview it, right? View data. I'm just gonna preview data. But remember, this is not how we validate the load because we cannot go through and compare row by row, right? Who has time to compare thousands of rows? But what we do is, well, we check the table metadata. So I go to SQL and I did save the code here for the example we're gonna use today. And you're gonna have the code, right? I'll give you the code. But okay, so what you do is, first thing you need to check the number of rows, and I'm gonna show you the number of rows on hotel review data. right? So that's the data where the customer store the review of their hotel stay. So here I'm just gonna run the count, right? And I'm just gonna do, okay, oops, I don't want to do run all, I want to do run selected. Here is an option, run selected. See, I ran this, and in here, it's gonna show me how many rows. This is a number of rows. You need to make sure that this number matches the number that is being returned, right? In the load history that I just showed you, it shows 5,299. That should match, okay? Now this one, there is a table called system tables. The table stores data about the tables that you created. It's a metadata. A creator is me. When you're running for yourself, right? When you're running it on your table, it's gonna be your table name, right? This is gonna be, I mean, your schema name. This is my schema name. For you, it's gonna be whatever your schema name is. So I'm gonna run selected. Well, let's see what's happening here. That's a query result. I have two tables, and creator is me, the time when the table was created, and the number of rows, right? Number of columns, I'm sorry. There is more information that is being stored in that table, but we don't need to worry about it in this course. Also, please note that the table name and column names are stored in the uppercase in the table in the metadata tables. This one is there is another table that stores information about the columns. So I'm just going to do run selected, and that's information about the columns. Table name, scissors, a column name, that's a table creator, column type. If the column may have nulls, null, it means that missing data, right? It's stored as null, and the column length, okay? And here, scissors, that's a where close, right? So I specified that I want to see the where creator is me, because there are also system tables, right? So I want to look at only at my tables, right? So see, that's a select statement. Select specifies a column name from which table you select, and the where limit the condition. So let's see here. Now that's a programmatic load validation. Programmatic means we validate the length, we validate the load, sorry, by running the code. Okay. If you have to override the previously loaded data, well, there are several options. In general, you can append data, or you can override what data you already have. But if your load is unsuccessful, you want to drop the table, okay? You drop the table and start from the beginning. They're just showing you how to drop the table. You go to table, you find your table and select drop, okay? Now, this is how to delete all data from the table. Well, please remember this. So when you do truncate table, what that will do is it will delete all data from the table and also reclaim the space. On the other hand, when you delete data, you're not reclaiming the space back. It will remove all data from the table, but the space has not been reclaimed, has not been cleaned out. And a drop table will remove the table structure and data. Truncate, it keeps the table structure, removes the data, reclaims the table space, the space that what table occupied. Delete is gonna do it keeps the table, removes all data, and does not reclaim the space. This is an interview question. Remember these differences, okay? Just remember that. So this is how to drop table programmatically. Well, I'm giving you that. Okay. Now, This is just showing you how to view, return to the low details page. So suppose that you had a busy, let's save this first. Okay, save it. Suppose that you had a busy day. Well, you loaded the data and you forgot to take the screenshot, right? That is how to return data. Then you have this here, load history. This shows the history of your data load. You can open this, and this will and take a screenshot, okay? So now if you forgot to take a screenshot, there is a way to get back to it, okay? You have to show this information here. And the target, the schema has to be your schema name, not my schema, okay? Now, next thing is, okay, select statements. After select, you have to put the comma delimited list of the columns. From, you have to specify from where are you selecting, from which table. Where clause filters individual row, or you can specify the join condition if you're pulling data from multiple tables. Group by, those are the columns, you specify the columns used for grouping data or for summarizing data, right? Like, for example, we have 2 sessions of data 650. If I wanted to know the assignment grade by session, I would have to do group by session, right? Having clause, it filters the groups, not the individual rows, but suppose that, for example, if I calculated the average grade per session, I want to see only the sessions with a grade above 85, right? Then I'm going to be filtering the groups, right? Right. See, I'm not filtering the individual rows. So that's the main difference from between where and having. Having filters the groups. Where filters the rows. Order by, it's how you want the data to sort. And you can specify what you want to do with missing values. If you sort nulls last, or if you sort nulls first. The table, the spelling of the, you have to spell the table name correctly. They must match exactly table names in the database. Table names in a select statement are not case sensitive, but they're case sensitive when you query the metadata table, okay? Every select statement must have at least select and from. Those are required. Because you need to tell what you're selecting, and you need to tell where you're selecting it from, right? So the where clause can contain more than one condition. For example, here I want to select all the reviews. I want to select the category name and review text if the rating is neutral and if the username contains traveler. So let's go back here. I have it here. SQL. Okay. So that's the 2 conditions. So let's see. I'm going to run it now. Run selected, and let's see what happens. Click here. That's an output. Oops. Yeah, that's an output. So see here that the category is a hotel name, but important thing is that the review text and reviewer contains traveler, but I want this to be case insensitive, right? So what I did was I converted it to uppercase, and like it's a wildcard here. So it means here, in here it means any number of characters followed by the traveler, then followed by any number of any characters. See, that's how likes work. It's a wildcard. I want this to contain traveler, but I want this to be case insensitive. So here I convert to uppercase, and this is an uppercase. And I'm using like. Hope it makes sense, right? See that that's the 2 conditions. So reviewer rating is neutral, and it's a traveler. Reviewer name contains traveler. Okay. Now next one is displaying distinct values. For example, I want to know what sentiment values will I have, right? So in this case, it's a review ratings column. If I run this, it's going to return me the distinct values for available ratings. See that? Oops, I have to know that. Come on. Here. Well, see this? But take a look at this. I have missing values in the ratings. See that? Some records are not rated. But here the values are negative, neutral, positive, slightly negative, slightly positive, and unspecified. So I need to think about my business rules. How am I going to treat the unspecified? Am I going to treat this to unknown? Like, for instance, I can treat the separate value as unknown. Or am I going to skip those records? Right? I need to know. Here, what this does is, remember, that's a group by. I want to list review ratings and the number of rows per ratings. See this, I do count review rating. See this, I do count. So let's do run selected. Let's see what happens here. Oops. So see, I click here. Well, it's gonna give me, oh, but you see the problem? Do you see the problem? It's because the count here, it ignores missing values. So it's just not gonna do it right? And I'll show you how to fix it. But right now, it's just showing me the number of negative, neutral, positive, slightly negative, right? But now let's see first thing first, let's see how many records are missing the rating value. So I just do this and I do select count star, and I'm gonna call the count as missing rating from table name, and this one is review rating is null. That's how you check for missing values. You're saying is null. Now I'm gonna go run selected. Okay, so it's 80. I have 80 records that are not rated, but why? The query above showed 0. That's because when you're doing the count like this with the column name, right, it ignores missing values and it's not gonna give you the expected result. So how can we do that? We can use NVL function. See this? So what I'm doing is I'm doing the NVL and I put count 1. It does not matter. You can count, you can put pseudo column here. But this should work now. Let's see if it's gonna work. It should. Right, because 1 is never null. Okay, so let's see here. It should work. Right now, I'm expecting 80 records in here. See it? What I did was I tried to I tried to treat the unknown as null, as null as unknown, right? So that's one way to fix it. Alternatively, I could just put here this NVL rating unknown. I can put it in the count like this too, but I just put 1. It does not matter. So what this will do, it's supposed to work, right? It returned me 80 expected result. But also all these numbers, the sum of these numbers has to match the number of rows that were loaded. Okay, so that's another way to verify this query. Right now, I want to see how many times each hotel was mentioned, and I want the category to be hotel, right? So let's see how many times each hotel was mentioned. So what does it actually do here? That's the group by. So what it will do, it is gonna count, right? For each hotel, it's gonna count how many records are. Where category is hotel, and we're gonna do group by, and we're grouping by hotel name, right? Very important is that each column that you list here, every non-aggregate column in a select statement must appear in a group by. So here, this is a non-aggregate name. It must appear here in a group by name, okay? Now, I want to return the hotels that were mentioned at least 50 times. What do I use? I use having clause because I'm filtering these groups. I'm not filtering initial data rows, right? So those are the groups. I'm filtering these groups. That's why I have to use the having clause in here. See? Having count greater than 50. And I'm going to do run selected. I need you to pay close attention here because you will have assignment 3 and there are going to be some queries that are more advanced, okay? So here, see, and how do you validate your work? You need to check, make sure there are nothing less than 50, okay? So it should be 51 or more times mentioned, okay? Now, here, I want to mention, how many times each sentiment mentioned. And here, this is another way to approach. I want to skip the rows where sentiment value is missing, right? So let's do it this way, and it's going to skip 80 records. It's not going to count the 80 record where sentiment is missing. I did it like this. But here again, the problem is we are not showing, we are missing the how many records are missing sentiment. Sometimes we want to know all counts, right? Just know that. This is another way to do how many times each record was missing. See this? What I did was I put NVL in here. So that way it will count nulls as unknown. Before I did the same query, but I just put 1 in here. Now you can also do this. But notice that, what am I doing in the order by? In the order by, you have 2 choices. You can put the column name, or you can also put the column position. So here I'm sorting it with a column in position 2, which is the number of tweets, and I want to sort this ascending. See, that's what it's doing. Order by, and here is the position, column position number. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little bit complicated, and I'll walk you through this. But first, let's go to the slides. You have very, very complicated queries, and you need to make sure that you understand. But this is a group by, right? We talked about that. This is a grouping column, and sometimes you can have multiple grouping column. Like, for example, here, see, you want to group by province and review rating. So you have to list both columns in a group by. In a group by, you list both columns in a group by. Because see, you're grouping by province and review rating, right? Those 2 are non-aggregate columns. They need to appear in a group by clause. Remember, you saw something similar earlier in another assignment. So now what I want to do, I want to produce this summary. I want to have, in the same row, I want to list my hotel name. I want to list how many positive ratings, slightly positive, neutral, slightly negative, negative, unknown, and total for that hotel, right? So I want to pull 1 row for hotel, and in each column, I want to list the number of ratings, right? So you have number of positive, number of slightly negative, number of neutral, right? All of this, I want to list like this. This is important because you have a similar query in assignment 3 that you need to write. So here's my preparation. I'm using the case statement here, and let's run this preparation query. So, okay, I'm gonna just run this one and I'll show you what it does. Run selected. Okay, so what I did was, in the query, you can have something like a columns that are not in a table, right? You can have calculated columns. What I did was, for the first column, here I said this: if the current rating is positive, I want to display positive as 1. If it's slightly negative, I want to display slightly negative as 1, otherwise 0. If it's neutral, I want to show neutral as 1, otherwise show that as 0, right? That's what I did. I created those calculated columns. If it's slightly negative, I want to show slightly negative as 1, otherwise show slightly negative as 0. If it's a negative, I want to show 1 in the negative column, and everything else will be 0, of course, right? And if it's unknown, right, if it's null, then I want to show 1 and otherwise 0, right? That's what it's doing here. Now, but how do I know how many positive I have? Don't I need to take the sum? If I take the sum of each column, I'm gonna know how many positive rating I have, how many slightly positive, how many neutral, etc., right? So I rewrote this code like this, see? I'm gonna show the hotel name. I'm gonna take the sum in here, see? I took whatever, how did I define the first column? And I took a sum on it. I took a sum on all of these columns here. And again, where categories is hotel, I'm grouping by name, and I want to sort by hotel name. But another thing is that sometimes the hotel name is unknown, null. So I want to show those hotel last. If there is a hotel with unknown name, I want to show it last. Okay? That's what I'm doing, and let's run this. That will show one row per hotel, right? And you have a similar query, you have a similar exercise where you have to do this query for airline sentiment, and you should do it because in your assignment 3, you have a graded query like this, okay? All right? So make sure that you understand how to do this, okay? But here I showed you the problems with nulls, right? When review rating is null, right, it's gonna omit the rows. And it's gonna just show blank, remember? So if I run this, it's just gonna show you last row, it's gonna be blank. See that? That is a problem because count like this, it's ignoring the missing values. So you have to do either NVL or count 1. All right. Now, this is an example of select statement where you have 2 grouping columns. I want to list the province review rating, right? And I want to count. So here it is. Oops. What this is listing the province, and it listing the review rating, which is negative in this case. And this is how many records you have in a province AL with negative rating. It's 4 in this case, see? But see, I have these two non-aggregate column, and I need to have those 2 columns in the group by clause. Now, I'm gonna go to the subqueries topic. Okay, so that's a long query we looked at, right? What is a subquery? Subquery is a query inside another query. Subquery can return one value. It can return the values list, or it can return virtual table. You can put the subquery in the select part of the query from, where, and having. You cannot put the subquery in a group by or in order by. Only select from, where, and having clause. For example, subqueries that return single value will usually appear in a where or having clause. Virtual table will appear in a from clause. All right. So now we're going to look at the examples of the subquery. Well, what this does is, well, it returns the provinces that do not have any positive rating. So the subquery is going to return the list of provinces that have positive rating, right? So select distinct province from hotel review where rating is positive. So I'm going to get a list of provinces that have at least one positive rating. Then the outer query is going to check for province not in the list returned by the inner query. Let's see if I have the subquery in here. This is more advanced. Okay, so here, see this list, this subquery, this one is going to return the provinces that have the positive, right, that have at least one positive rating. But the problem is, see, in order to look, well, in order to look at this, right, I want to look at the list where the provinces are not on this list, right? So I could do this not in, where province not in, and then copy this list. But the thing is, it's a dynamic, right? You want this to be dynamic. You don't want to be rewriting the query each time this list changes. So what you do is this: select distinct province, where province not in results returned by the subquery below. See, I'm going to run it now. Run selected. And each query needs to end with a semicolon. Then you will be able to run more than one query at once. Well, see, those are the provinces. See, all of these do not have any positive reviews. All right. And the subquery can be more. Oh, this is just showing you the query with two. Oh, here, what it's doing is just showing you the negative count, right? So let's run this. Run selected. It just showing you, oh, the hotel. It's showing you the number of hotels with the positive counts. That's what it's doing here. It's a number, it's showing you the hotel name and number of positive counts. Right? Now, this is a little bit complex. What I want to do is, I want to list the average number of positive counts per hotel where the number of positive counts is above average. So here I found out how many positive counts are. Then I need to know the average number of positive counts, right? And then I have to select something that is above average. So this one is just the average. So I took that query that I just ran and I put it inside to get the average number of positive posts for hotel. I do run selected. So I know on average, each hotel has 22 positive reviews, right? So now I need to find out which hotels have more than 22 positive reviews. So I have two layers of subquery now. The inner one returns the number of positive reviews per hotel. That one takes the average, and the next one, it's gonna show the hotels that have, see that having, it's gonna select the hotels that have above average number of positive counts. So I'm gonna just run this by here, run selected, and it should work. Okay. Positive count, but you need to make sure all of these counts are above 22 because we found out that the average is 22. Okay. So now I'm gonna go back to the slides. Well, this is just going over of the subqueries, right? So the subquery can return the list. I showed the example with a list. It can return virtual table, or it can return single value, right? For RStudio, you want to select the environment that uses only one capacity unit per hour. It's not 1.5, it's 1 this time. Here, it's just where you see RStudio disk utilization. Please delete all objects, everything that is not in use. You want to delete it. Well, because you want to reduce the disk usage. That's another problem. You're running into issues with running the queries for assignment. What you want to do here is that you, the script that you got, it has examples of different methods, but you have to run one method at a time because, see, you create confusion matrix and it's huge, right? So it's taking up the space, but they put a limit on a space that students may use. So when you run a method, right after you need to delete all those matrices that are no longer in use. You will be able to run only one method at a time, unfortunately. Okay. You're going to delete, you need to delete the plot that you no longer need, and delete all files that you no longer need. But to run, right, you're going to upload the file into the data object storage, right? Then, after you exit RStudio, you want to make sure that environment is not running. Go to Manage and select to make sure environment does not run, okay? Next thing is this is how it shows that there are no active environments, right? This is just an explanation of something extra. I don't know if the current memory limitation allows you to run this method, but I'll tell you this, for assignments 3, pick 2 methods that run. Let's say it this way, if you're having difficulties with running a certain method, just pick 2 that run. I know that for sure, the one that does the time analysis, trend analysis, that one runs for sure for everyone. All right, so pick 2 that run. If you are unable to get network of Storm to run due to technical reasons, just pick another method. You have to pick 2. Okay, don't worry. Well, okay. Well, this is just a troubleshooting. If you are missing DB2, in DB2, if you're missing the page that called credentials, it means that you're probably launching the application from the Cloud Pak instead of IBM Cloud. You need to launch from IBM Cloud, right? This is just shows you rules. Well, what happened is you have 2 packages. You have text analysis package, and the rules package have function called inspect. But if it's trying to, sometimes it's not clear which function, from which package you're trying to call. So what you need to do is you need to qualify the function name with the package name. So here, rules, colon, I'm looking at the 15 rules, and I'm using the function from a rules package, okay? So that's a package name followed by double column. Make sense? This is just what happens if you have to make sure that you spell the column name correctly. Like here in the query, I spelled with ID without underscore, but the column has an underscore in the name, and it's going to give me an error. So when it does, you have to check the actual column names in the table, make sure it matches. And same thing goes for the table name, right? You have to make sure that it's correct. I just gave you that example because sometimes it's a common error. Now, you have to save all your work on your PC because you never know what's go wrong. If the service is down, you won't be able to access your code. And please use Notepad for the SQL and R code. You have to do ungraded exercises. Why? Because your assignment 3 has similar questions but graded, and because your quiz has some questions on the results returned by ungraded exercises. And you want to do a little bit beyond. Well, what some students did, they take the code verbatim and try to plug in their data, which is not good. You need to think about it, what you need to change. Like, for example, for association rule methods, trust me, you have to use different parameters to run the method. Running with default parameters is not going to work. It's going to give you at least two, it's going to give you only two rules. So you would have to use different parameters. Do a little bit of modification. If it's a visualization, perhaps use different color or something like that. You don't want to take the code verbatim. You reuse it, but you want to adjust the given SQL code to what your data actually is, all right? In a given R code. You may want to prepare the code in advance, right? You might be able to run only one method at a time. And when you're done, you will clear the variables that you no longer need. Sometimes you may want to start the new R session, and then run another method. Unfortunately, they limited the space because people used to run and never cleared object from the memory. Those are additional commands. You can see the installed packages. You can see the packages in memory, etc. I hope did I address earlier question about the R example? Because you said you have some issues, but you never told me which issues, and you never submitted the ticket. What are the issues? If it's running out of memory, then yes, it's a known issue. You need to remove objects from the memory that you no longer use. And to remove it, you either use rm command or you go to the environment window. You find that the variable you no longer need and use a broom to delete it. You need to delete everything that you no longer use and run one method at a time. Okay? Did I answer the question? Did I answer the question, Augustine? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Augustine, are you still here? Yeah, let me see. Yes, okay, thank you, thank you. So please give that a try and see if it does it. Well, because in the past, I could just go ahead and run the whole code, no issues. But what happened was people would load stuff in memory and they never cleared it. So IBM got upset and they put limit on a quota on how much you can have in memory at the same time. But at least please get a big picture, get an idea of what you can do in general. You can do the network of terms. You can do the terms association, right? You can do the word cloud. Then you can do the varieties of methods that you could do, right? So then another thing is that limitations of this particular study is that the data is not factual. This is opinion. Then we also do in the back of words analysis, right? So that the context is lost. We have a lot of missing values here. So we have to some kind of like trick the query. Either we skip the missing values or we have to treat them as unknown. In your paper, please specify how you handle missing values. That's for assignment 3. There will be no separate session for assignment 3. So I want you to pay undivided attention, and you probably, trust me, you may have to watch this recording more than once because I gave you more SQL overview, right? I tried to do a little bit more than in the classroom, and you will have to do this query with a subquery. Then that one is on the data is on debate candidate. So you have to do how many times each candidate mentioned. Then you will have to do a query that produces one row per candidate and counts number of positive or negative, etc. Right? But here, again, the limitation of this query is that the values are known in advance, right? Like the queries that I was doing earlier, you have your values are known in advance. Like see if I go to that interesting query, I know these values in a column header. See, I know them in advance. That's an assumption, right? Another thing is that you want to look, if you look at the total column, you want to make sure that if you add up the rest of the column, the sum has to match the number in the total column. And also, this total here should match the results returned by the query on how many times each candidate is mentioned. If it doesn't, then something is wrong, see? Well, in your case, it's going to be candidate. In this case, it's hotel. In your sentiment analysis tutorial, that's an airline, okay? Another thing that I need to tell you is that for all of the multiple choice questions, if the question has more than one answer, it tells you to select two answers. Well, it tells you to select how many answers. If it tells you to select two answers, you need to select two answers. If it tells you to select three, you need to select three. If it tells you to select two, you select only one, you'd get no credit for that question because you did not follow the instruction to select two answers, all right? Or if it just tells you to select best answers, then you need to select one answer. Make sense? Yes? Say yes. Do you have any questions for me? Anything, guys? And I have to tell you, DB2 does not consume the hour, so you can use whatever. Sure. So for the DB2, you can use for whatever you want. It does not consume the capacity hours. So isn't it good news? You can practice your queries, do all of those ungraded queries. There's no reason not to, because it does not consume the hours. But in the past, we were able to read the data in R from DB2 directly, but it's no longer supported. But in general, just keep in mind, there is an R package called IBM DBR. And that package, if supported, that package allows you to read data straight from the database into R. That's how this assignment was done earlier. When it was supported, we were reading data straight from DB2 into R and doing the analysis. That was a lot of fun, right? But here, students who waited to do the work until the last minute, their code was not working, etc. Because when you are working on the last minute, you get nervous. All right? And when you get nervous, you're having trouble concentrating and you're making mistakes. That's it, right? So you want to make sure that you did all your coding earlier, right? So anything else you want me to go over? Let me see. Questions? No. You will be able only the SQL part without capacity hours. For the R, there are capacity hours for R. SQL, no limit. For the RStudio, there is a limit. For the RStudio, there is a limit, 10 per month. RStudio. And it will be reset sometime tonight. Should have been already. All right? For the R, there is a limit. But for the DB2, you can use it. The database that I was just using, see, I never even care to stop because this is a DB2. DB2, use whatever, unlimited. R, no. Watch out. Prepare the code ahead of time, okay? But you're not going to be running the code for 10 hours. So 10 hours should be more than enough for the assignment. But just watch out, okay? Be careful and super careful. Make sense? R, limited. DB2, not limited. But you can experiment with SQL as much as you want. At least something, right? And whatever we're going to do for next assignment will also be no limit. Well, there is a limit on API calls for assignment 4, but nobody in the past ran into 1/10 of that limit. So assignment 4, you can think no limit. For the assignment 3, limit only on R, not on GB2. So take advantage and practice your SQL here, okay? For the SQL, practice whatever you want. For the R, be careful with the limit. Did I answer it? Well, you got something here, right? It's better than, yeah. Sure, no problem. Guys, anything else you want me to go over? Oh, and after, very important, after you submit this assignment, right, please remind to give you the answers to the ungraded SQL exercises. All right? So at some point next week, please remind. I will try to give it to professor to post. But first, I want you to practice, right? Because if I give you the answer today, you won't be practicing. And if you having problems with the query, please do submit the Salesforce ticket and I'll help you, right? So anything else, folks? And let's see if instructor joined. Nope, he did not. Okay. So are we all good? Then I'm gonna end the recording and you're gonna get this recording. I'm gonna give you the sample SQL for the hotel data and you're gonna get the slides. Sounds fair? Okay. And I would like you guys to thank you for taking time to attend. All right? Okay. So I'm gonna end the recording and stop sharing.